You ever go through the dessert line and take 2 pieces of red velvet cake? Today I felt like I've taken 2 pieces of red velvet cake, and I ain't got enough time or room to consume them both. So we're just going to, I'm going to encourage people when you go home to watch the first service also, and I'm going to encourage people from the first service to watch this one. To get it all. As I look at it, forgiveness is very complicated. It probably should be a 3-sermon series. So I'm just going to whet your appetite maybe. And we'll go by the grace of God. I don't want you to think that God chose to do this to Joseph, right? Because there's no evil in God, but what came out of it was God provided, not ordained. So don't think that, right? So here we go. Being a Christian, a follower of Jesus, it's not that complicated. We like to make it complicated. We like to have nuances. We like to have rules that you're supposed to be following, things you're supposed to be doing. It's not that complicated. 1 John 3:33. I command you, believe in me and love each other. You have a problem with that? You're all lying. It's hard to love each other. John 15. This I command you, Jesus says. This I command you. It's not like a suggestion, Dennis. You chose to sit there. It's not a suggestion. I command you to love each other as I have loved you. It seems like the simplest thing, and it's the hardest thing in the world. They came to Jesus and said, what is the greatest of the 10 commandments? Do you remember his reply? Go ahead. And? Love God. These are the 2 and the greatest of commandments. It didn't negate the other 8. Because if you were accomplishing love God and love neighbor, you were accomplishing the other 8. Because you could not love your neighbor and kill them. You could not love your parents and disobey them, right? A relationship with God and a relationship with our neighbor. And then the question comes, as we all ask, as the young man asked him after he asked that question, who's my neighbor? The person that looks like me, talks like me, thinks like me, believes like me. And Jesus told him this parable of the Good Samaritan. This parable is brilliant. The Jews hated the Samaritans. They were less than. They were out of God's privilege. Jesus did this intentionally. Brilliant. The guy in the ditch is naked. The ones that were supposed to stop were doing actually what the law commanded them, not to become unclean. Because when you're naked in this time period, the way they could tell who you were was by your clothes. What you wore. Did you have tassels? Did you have prayer tassels? You're Jewish. I don't know what Samaritans wore, but the Gentiles wore different clothes, so everybody wore different clothes. But here comes the Samaritan and sees a man in the ditch in need. Didn't ask for immigration papers. Didn't ask what political party you're a part of. Bless you. saw a person in need and did what? Ministered to them. Helped them. Who is your neighbor? Whoever you come across in your path on that road. Whoever is in a ditch. That's our neighbor. That's who we're supposed to love. These seems like they might be obtainable. Loving God. Do you love God?
Yes.
With all your heart, soul, and mind?
Yes.
You bunch of liars. We put things above God every day, right? It's a journey every day. We put our job above God. We put our possessions above God. We put our sports teams above God. And so every day it's a journey that's like, okay, this isn't me. It doesn't make that bad, right? To have those things. It's just like, okay, number one. Number one's not country. Number one's not family. Number one's not fence. Number one's God. And the rest gets ordered underneath, right? And then Jesus, as he always does, goes 2 steps further. And he raises the bar another couple notches. So it is impossible for us to accomplish this on our own. And he says this incredibly radical, stupid thing. I want you to love your enemies. When we say love, it's not affection. You don't have to be best buddies with your enemies. When we say love, it is you genuinely care for a good outcome to them as you would for yourself. That's loving your neighbor, right? Do unto others, I do unto myself. Hardest thing in the world. Any of you got enemies? Right? What constitutes an enemy? Say that? Someone who wrongs you. Maybe it's somebody that's hostile to you. Maybe it's somebody that thwarts you, or hates you, or dislike you, or people, or a cause, or because you're just part of a group. Right? I have enemies. I'm still fighting with the U.S. Postal Service. I let it go. Did I let it go, Steve? No. But it's an ongoing journey, right? Joseph's brothers were enemies. They wanted to kill him. Go back and read that whole story. They treated him horribly, sold him into slavery. Come to Egypt to get food, and Joseph wanted to make them hurt. You read that story, every little bit, he was just like poking a little bit. I want you to feel, don't we want that, yeah? When we've been hurt, don't we want everybody? I want you to feel a little bit of that hurt. And Joseph was withholding it. And then it came the time, right? Where you keep these things inside. And the power of God overpowers you. And I'm hoping that happens to you. I'm hoping it happens to me. Power of God overpowers you to forgive. Joseph, sitting at the dinner with his brothers, right, could not hold it in anymore and wept forgiveness. Because it's the only way you can be whole. Love to hold a grudge. Arya Stark, anybody know who that is? You know who it is. She's on Game of Thrones. Anyway, she, every night, would go to bed and speak about her enemies because she wanted to close their eyes. Joffrey, Cersei, Mountain. Instead of praying, right, for them. That's a natural reaction. People have hurt you. I want to hurt you back. But her character started to become even more bitter, more disenchanted, less loving. Grudge is poison you swallow, waiting for somebody else to die. And it will poison you. Forgive your enemies. Right? Jesus, when he says love your enemies, it's not about affection, it's about controlling your reaction or your action to them. 3 examples Jesus gives us. We're going into overtime, Mike. Yeah. Three examples. After he says, love your enemies. If somebody slaps you on the face. Have you ever been slapped in the face? Well, some of you should probably need to. No, you don't. It's shameful, right? If you have ever experienced that, that is a ton of shame. And what it is, this person with power, right, is being aggressive to you and hate. The natural reaction is what? I'm going to hit you back. And I'm going to keep on hitting until you're down on the ground. That's a natural reaction. But you have replied to hate with hate. And Jesus says, no. You slap somebody this way, turn the other cheek, that's an open hand. And now the shame's reversed. Onto the slapper. Joseph said to his brothers, you ain't the boss of me. You're not going to control me. You get slapped on the cheek and you turn the other cheek, you're saying, you're not the boss of me. My action to you has now put the shame on you. Because if you swing again, shame on you. I'll give you an example. Birmingham Bridge, Civil Rights Movement, Martin Luther King told every one of those people, these are people of the church, protesting racial inequality. He says, we are going there as a non-violent movement. We are not raising a hand. If you get attacked, and this is great discipline, because Martin Luther King Jr. was following the Bible. He knew to turn the other cheek, because turning the other cheek gives you power. It robs the aggressor. And so on that bridge, innocent people, marching, and they are attacked. And they do not react. A nation watched that. Turning point of the civil rights movement. Because white people watching on their TV said, this ain't right. This ain't right. If those marchers had responded in hate and violence, it would just been troublemakers, right? Troublemakers. Turn the tables. Somebody takes your cloak, and if they're taking their cloak and they're not taking it for stealing it from you, it's because they were getting back their loan from you. You had a debt. In Deuteronomy, it was against the law to take somebody's cloak after the noonday, because they'd need it for the night. And so Jesus says, if that person is this shameful, it doesn't care that you're out without a coat, he wants his loan now, you ain't the boss of me. Take that? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to spare you all that. Take my shirt too. The shame is reversed. And now, that looks great on you, actually. You lend somebody, don't expect nothing back in repayment. My former boss, Greg Samusky, every time I borrowed a tool from him, he'd kiss it. Because he wasn't going to see it again. And didn't expect to. That people come to me, that like people have been approached about loans. Like somebody came to me and they said, like, they'll pay me back. And I said, listen, this is what you do. If you want to give, give. But don't expect anything in return. Because it frees you. It frees you. Just like, okay, this is a gift, right? We're expecting anything in return. Well, then we're just like everybody else. And we're commanded not to be like everybody else. Because this is a scratch my back, scratch yours world. Has been forever. And if we expect the world to be changed, we've got to act different. If we expect this world to become a better place, we got to act different. Daryl Davis. I'll only hold you for 5, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes. It's just a wonderful story. I encourage you to look up Daryl Davis. Daryl Davis is a keyboardist. He was played for Miles Davis, knew Jerry Lee Lewis and all of those things. Daryl Davis, when he was 10 years old, his father was a foreign dignitary. They lived in Germany, they lived in Sweden, they lived in Finland. 10 years old, Daryl Davis moved back to the United States. Friends of his convinced him, like, why don't you become a Cub Scout? Or is that a Boy Scout now? 10. Boy Scout? Cub Scout. It was a Cub Scout. And so we're in this parade, celebrating Paul Revere's ride in Massachusetts. Daryl's carrying the colors. And all of a sudden, people start throwing things and yelling at him and hitting his face. Daryl Davis was black. And he didn't know why. He thought they hated the Cub Scouts. Because he had lived overseas and had never experienced this prejudice. Then he went to his family and says, like, what? They hate the Cub Scouts? And they had to tell him, it's because of the color of your skin. Here's about Daryl Davis. Did he start hating white people? Daryl Davis, a man of God too, says, how can someone hate me that doesn't even know me? And so he went on a crusade against the Ku Klux Klan. Not to hate the Ku Klux Klan, but to love them. Daryl Davis, Maryland guy, he moved to Maryland, almost single-handedly dismantled the Ku Klux Klan in Maryland because he demanded to talk to the Grand Dragon. He didn't tell him he was black. Daryl Davis wanted to know, wanted to love. It took a lot of time. 20 to 30 Ku Klux Klan members brought him their robes, brought them his flags, because they took time to sit down together. And let me tell you, the love was one-sided for a very long time. But that one-sided love eventually turned around. Love, hope, faith. These three things. But the greatest of these is what? Amen.